Good evening, flock. Good evening, everyone. How is everyone doing tonight on this Thursday, Friday Eve? I hope everyone is doing well. Hope you've had a great week thus far. Come on in, sit down. Let's talk about our Baltimore Ravens. I can't really say we have a lot to talk about because this is a recap of week 2 of the NFL free agency, specifically as it relates to the Baltimore Ravens. And I don't know that we've done a lot this week. We've done some things, right? We have. We've made a couple of moves and we'll talk about it. I like to call it transactions. That's what I'll call it. We've made a couple of transactions this week and I don't know how I'm feeling about it. Actually, I do know how I'm feeling about it. We'll talk about it. So let's get started. I think for me, this week has been one of increasing the depth in different positions. This was not a week where I felt like the Baltimore Ravens went in to address position or, number one in a respective position group. This was a week where it seemed more of let's add depth pieces, second string, third string, etc., not necessarily addressing we still need a starting position. And so this week we brought in or we signed Chris Board. Okay. Special teams next. And then we signed tackle Josh Jones. Now, I didn't know who he was prior to us, signing him. So I had to look him up. He's 26 years old. He was a third round pick in 2020, and he played majority of the games at left tackle and right guard. So from this, I gather he is more of a backup swing tackle, but we already have that in Pat McCary, unless that means that we are pushing now Pat McCary into a starting role. I don't know. Maybe that's the plan for the Baltimore Ravens. So if that be the case, then I guess the Josh Jones signing makes a little bit of sense. Nevertheless, this is a former Cardinal. He also played for the most recently, he also played for the Texans. So this one to me, what concerned me about him is the penalties. And if you look at, his stats and PFF, this is a player who had quite a few penalties. And when we're talking, even if he's a rotational player, right? When we're talking our offensive line, that's where you win the games. It starts in the trenches. And for this person, for Josh Jones to come here, and even if it is on a rotational basis, I'm concerned about the penalties. That does concern me. So something we'll need to watch. But for me, this signing did not move the needle. It did not move it at all because I'm still questioning what are we going to do? Like, where are we placing him? Where will he be a left tackle backup? Will he be a backup right guard? And then if he's backing up the right guard, who do we have at right guard? We still don't have that question answered. I believe it's probably going to be Pat McCary unless we address it in the draft. So let me take 2.5 to say hello to everyone who joined. I see D Weezy is here. Thank you for coming by. Yeah, big O-line Newton. Exactly. It's just not. Oh, and Rob, thank you for coming. I'm glad you're here. Please make sure you turn on your post notifications because I'm still trying to work out a schedule. So I don't know exactly what days I'll be live streaming, but for right now, it's probably going to be toward the end of the week unless we make some splash move in the middle of the week or the beginning of the week, and I just have to hop on because I just can't keep it to myself because the Baltimore Ravens actually did something. Nana, good evening. Thank you for joining. I hope you're doing well. Ed, says, I think he's going to push out Falele and Falele gets traded. I don't let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about Falele. How are we feeling about him? How do we think picking him up, drafting him, and that draft pick really not panning out at all? I'll tell you my thoughts. My thoughts are that was a wasted draft pick. Unless we can see something completely new in Falele, but if we are going solely based on what we've seen thus far, he's stiff, he's robotic, he just doesn't have it. So to me, that's a wasted draft pick. And Osmond says underwhelming. This has been, and I'm not sure, Osmond, if you're mentioning like how would you describe Falele with that, but that's a good one. But you could also be talking about how we feel about the Ravens' moves this week in free agency. I'm going to use that word, underwhelming for sure. We have Hendo from the Rogue Pod. Good evening. I hope you're doing well. Make sure you head over to Hendo's channel at the Rogue Pod. If you're not subscribed, please go ahead and do that. Take 2.5. We'll be right here. He put out a video today that was amazing. It was really a good one because it's all about the receipts. He has been saying the same thing for the last year after year after year after year. And here we are, fast forward 3 or 4 years later, and we're still in the same predicament. So. Exactly, Hendo. Who wants Falele? I don't know. I don't know. D Weezy, EDC is doing something. Yeah. I'm holding out some hope, right? Because I said in one of the streams before, EDC won my and earned my vote of confidence. He earned it by signing Lamar Jackson because to me, that was going to be an incredible feat. It was going to be a Herculean effort, and he did it. He did it. So by virtue of that, did he surround my quarterback with the talent I would have liked to have, for him? No, he didn't. Did he, go out and make splash moves and bring in number ones? No, he didn't. But he signed my quarterback. And so for that, I have to give him some type of credit. So for me, this offseason, and especially free agency now, excuse me, I'm trying to not rush into being upset. This is an exercise, a practice of patience for me, because generally I want it done like not now, right now. And it's not happening that way. That just tends to be, I think, the Baltimore Ravens-esque way of doing things, the way they handle business, the way they come to decision making. It's not what I personally would like, but I'm going to not rush to be too upset at this point. I still have a lot of questions, namely with our offensive line. We look discombobulated. We look disenfranchised. We look just not put together. And I know it's early. We're only in week 2. It's the start of a new league year. We're only 2 weeks in. But I do have concerns when we don't acquire players who are proven veterans, established veterans, seasoned with a demonstrated track history, a track record of being able to come in and instantly change the dynamics of the game. And we just don't seem to have that. Arguably, we can say that Derrick Henry has been that signing for us this offseason. And, that's up for debate. The next thing that I'd like to talk about is wide receiver. Now, this position here is one that I really wanted an upgrade. I wanted to see from last year and even the years before that, I want to see the Ravens bring in a true number 1 wide receiver for Lamar. I want an upgrade when we're talking drops and when we're talking injuries. I don't want that to be our identity on offense in terms of the wide receiver position. So we know that OBJ, free agent, visiting with the Dolphins. Who knows what's going to happen there? I don't see the Ravens bringing him back. That's fine. But if you are going to bring in another free agent, wide receiver, that person, or if you're planning to draft a wide receiver, then what I'd like to see is an upgrade in talent from what we just had. And the Ravens mentioned on social media today that um, Josh, I'm sorry, not Josh, Michael Gallup is coming in for a visit, and I think it was today, and then tomorrow, I'm just like, well, what are we doing? And we're bringing in Josh Reynolds from the Lions. That's the other player, and I think his visit is set for tomorrow. If I had to choose, I'm going Josh Reynolds. But my only concern with him is when he played for the Lions, when the big lights turned on, when it was the big stage, postseason, he had drops. That's concerning because now is he truly an upgrade? Maybe. Because at this point, I still don't know who our number one wide receiver is. Sure, we can argue that it's Zay Flowers. He had over 850 some yards last season. He was our rookie who came out and, except for a few, I'm going to call it rookie mistakes, he was very good. He was pretty good for us for a rookie. But and who knows? He continues to develop, and if he's working this offseason with Lamar, maybe they'll continue working on that chemistry. But if we know that free agents like Tyler Boyd are out there, and we know that T. Higgins requested a trade, Ravens, why did we not explore that? Why are we not? So that's that's concerning for me. Nana said Falele and Cleveland are disappointing. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Hendo says you don't get credit for doing something that you had to do. Point taken, point taken. But I will say that I don't know that he necessarily had to do it. Maybe for purposes of salvaging his name as a GM. So maybe that would be the reason. But he could have certainly gone out there and picked up any other quarterback last year who was a free agent. And I mean, sure, the fan base or part of the fan base would have been in an uproar. And I personally would have followed Lamar wherever he went, but that's neither here nor there. Exactly, Nana. Ozzie was the one who signed Lamar. He is. That's right. And we can't forget that. We can't lose sight of that when we speak about EDC. I am not here to say EDC is horrible. That's not my opinion. And my opinion is I'm going to see how he does this offseason. That's what I want to see. Because certainly we all know you've paid a franchise quarterback now. You have said and endorsed on numerous platforms Lamar Jackson is it for this team for the foreseeable future. Now, the next logical step is you build a wall around him and you provide him with the weapons that he needs to succeed. So that's what I'm looking for this offseason. Will it happen? It hasn't happened yet. But other than, again, I said earlier, if you're just joining, thank you. Other than Derrick Henry and arguably maybe not the best at that running back position that was available at the start of free agency, but I will say at least I think Derrick Henry is an upgrade from what we had at running back this past year. Yeah, Nana, you're right. It's still a long time between now and training camp, and along with patience, yeah, patience is it's not my best virtue. So no, I'm trying to wait. I'm trying to just temper expectations. I'm trying to take it one day at a time. But I think I start to become a little bit more antsy as we see other teams shoring up their weaknesses, their deficiencies. When I see other teams identifying areas of weakness where they need to improve, and they're making those adjustments, they're making those improvements. And meanwhile, I see my team sitting idly by, and we think that, oh, okay, well, we can wait, get someone on a discount, and expect that person who we waited, got them on a discount, and we hope that they pan out for us. That sometimes works. It does. Sometimes it does, because we saw last year with Kyle Van Noy, and we saw it with Jadeveon Clowney. But that might not happen every time, and we can't always count on that. So sometimes I would just like, as a fan, I would just like to see the Ravens be proactive as opposed to reactive. Like, oh, wait, it's almost the start of training camp. I think we need to start filling some holes. Like, I would like to see us do a little bit more. Good evening, Brodney. Thank you for coming by. This is one half of Lunch Break Hot Take. If you are not subscribed to their channel, I'll still be around. Take 2.5, go over to Lunch Break Hot Take. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and watch their streams. They tell you, they give you the content, not just about the Ravens. So if you are interested in other sports, NBA, they even have I think it's Rodney, put it in the chat for me, your boxing channel. Please list that below, or put it in the chat so that everybody knows where to go if they're interested in boxing. Ring Kings, I think it's called, but please make sure you let everyone know. So go over there to Lunch Break Hot Take, and they give you not only the Ravens, but Panthers as well, because Brodney is a Panthers fan. And we'll see what the Panthers do. Are they going to surround their quarterback, right? They drafted Bryce Young. Are they going to surround their quarterback this year with the talent that they need? Who knows? We'll see. So, Brandon, good evening. Thank you for joining. Good to see you. I'm happy that you're here. Yes, Big Reg, thank you. Thank you so much for joining. Glad you're here. And yes, it is called the Ring Kings podcast. Thank you, Hendo, and thank you, Brodney. So if you are interested and you love boxing, or if you are interested in learning more about boxing, I think Brodney always says it's the best boxing podcast out there. Go over and check that podcast out. So we were just talking about wide receiver. So with the remaining wide receivers, let me know in the chat. We are bringing in Michael Gallup. I think he came today. And then tomorrow, Josh Reynolds. Out of the two, who would you prefer? For me, I mentioned earlier, I would take Josh Reynolds, with the caveat I'm concerned about the drops. That does concern me. But out of the two, I think I would take, because to me, Michael Gallup was not a whole lot more in terms of receptions and targets and touchdowns. He wasn't much better than OBJ last year. So we're essentially, I mean, for that, we can just go ahead and say OBJ come back, and we'll re-sign him for the about roughly the same amount of production. So I'm not really high up on Michael Gallup. I'm not really super high up on Josh Reynolds either. I would prefer T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. Now, are the Bengals going to talk to us and entertain us in sending over some players? Probably not. Nope. No, I don't think so. Songstress for real. Good evening. Welcome. She says the Ravens won't pay the amount of money that Boyd or Higgins want. Exactly. That's exactly right. But you get what you pay for, oftentimes. And again, I mentioned a little while ago that sometimes you get a great value. You get a bargain. You do. I think we've had great bargain players in Jadeveon Clowney and Kyle Van Noy, but that's not the rule. To me, that's the exception. And to go in thinking that, oh, this is the mindset, right? This is the mentality that is one that is slated for success. We get every position group, or the primary position groups, we're going to get them for cheap. We're going to wait until the last minute, and then we're going to sign whoever's left over, and we're going to win. We're going to win that Super Bowl. I don't think that's reality. I don't think that's right. So that to me is a big deal, and is very concerning. Hendo says he would take Stephon Diggs. I'm on the fence about Stephon. I really am. I mean, but true enough, Stephon Diggs would be an upgrade from the talent that we had last year at the position. It would. Reynolds, but neither are what they need. Rodney, what do you think the Ravens need? At wide receiver, who would your pick be? Of the free agents that are remaining, who would you pick? Nana said neither. I'm with you. I'm not a fan of either one. Neither one of those individuals, Josh or Michael, move the needle for me. They don't. They don't. Brandon says Michael Gallup. Why Michael? If we just had, so I wrote down here, OBJ, PFF grade of 76.2. OBJ had 62 targets, 565 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns. Michael Gallup had very similar stats. I think he had 5 touchdowns and maybe 100 yards more, something like that. So very, very similar stats between Michael Gallup and OBJ. I, for one, was completely, as Osmond said earlier, underwhelmed. I was underwhelmed with OBJ. But then again, I thought more of it. What was my realistic expectation of OBJ? Here is someone who had been out of the league for over a year. Here's someone who had 2 ACL tears. Here's someone on the upward end of 30 and ish, I think 30-ish. I don't know his age, but what did I really expect? Yes, the name garnered the attention. Sure, everybody's, buzzing OBJ, but when it came down to it, we'd see him on the field for 5 seconds, and then he'd make one good catch, and we wouldn't see or hear his name anymore for the rest of the game. That to me is not worthy of the $15 million that we paid him. That to me is not something, and I'm not saying that Michael Gallup is going to command $15 million. I don't know what his going rate is, but I know OBJ's name carries the weight, and that's why obviously we're trying to lure Lamar into signing that contract. And hey, we dangled a carrot in front of him and said, listen, we're going to sign OBJ. Come sign with us, Lamar. We're beyond that now. We're past that. We have Lamar Jackson. So bring in a name. And again, even though I'm not a huge Stephon Diggs fan, bring in a Stephon Diggs. Bring in a T. Higgins. Bring in a Tyler Boyd. And yes, as Songstress for Real said earlier, Ravens aren't going to pay him. They're not going to offer the capital that's required, whether it's draft picks, because we certainly don't give up on those. We do not. Or if it's the money, we're not doing it. So we're just not. Hendo says, you make anyone the right offer, they will trade. I agree. It comes down to, and that's an excellent point, it comes down to your desire. Do you want to do this? Are you comfortable doing this? You can. We had an increase in cap this past season. If we manage our funds properly, if we are frugal and we're careful and we conduct our due diligence, we can do it. We can certainly do it. It's just a matter of will we? And I think the answer is no, we won't. Nana says, oh, I'm sorry, before I get to Nana's comment, Rodney, thanks for answering. Justin Jefferson. Can I just tell you that I've heard Justin Jefferson is rumored to go to the Bengals. That concerns me. It bothers me. It almost borderline angers me. I don't even want to think of Justin Jefferson over there in the Bengals. So yes, I agree with you, Rodney. Justin Jefferson, Ayuk, and Diggs. Okay. You heard it here first. Ravens, Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, Stephon Diggs. And thank Josh Reynolds and thank Michael Gallup for coming by, but wish them well on their journey. Nana said, I would take D-Hop and a young number 1 free agent. Okay. I would have absolutely loved D-Hop. I would have loved it. I was on the let's get D-Hop train last offseason. Brandon says these guys are a 1-year deal. I want the Ravens to get CeeDee Lamb. Okay, but the Cowboys will not have enough to pay him because the Cowboys will not have enough to pay him. CeeDee Lamb would be great. That would be wonderful. But it goes back to what we were mentioning earlier. Are the Ravens willing to pay what it takes to get CeeDee Lamb? Are the Ravens willing to give up draft capital, pay to get a CeeDee Lamb? And if the answer to that is no, if the answer is no, thank you, that's just a bit out of our price range, then we go back on the hamster wheel and we talk about Michael Gallup and we talk about Josh Reynolds. See, I have to keep looking down at my notes because I can't even remember their names. That should tell you something right there. Gallup had less in more games. Exactly. Yeah, I'm not. No, no, just no to Michael Gallup. Dewan says, I would try to trade for AJ Brown. Something was going on with him in the Eagles last year. He didn't seem happy. Now there's a fun twist. Let's do it. I would be all in for an AJ Brown. Why not? If there was trouble in the land between AJ and the Eagles, and if he wasn't happy, he wants out, explore that option. That is a great point. So I see it's interesting that we as fans can put our heads together. We can think about possible players that can come in and instantly make a difference on our team. And then we look at the front office and we're like, are you guys not thinking about this? Are you guys not discussing this? Are you all not having conversation about it? Because seemingly, if your plan is, I want to win a Super Bowl, and that's a huge if, okay? That's a, I'm going to say, if our goal is we want to make it to the Super Bowl this year and we want to win and we want to construct a roster that is going to get us there, then you're having these conversations and you're naming these players. Certainly, we as fans, we're seeing it. So, Ravens, wake up, pay attention, see it too, talk about it, make it happen. Songstress for Real says every year we have to hear about preparation for an awesome receiver on other teams. It would seem that we could get one, just one. And I don't even like to say, I like to live my life as one who dreams big. I am. And so while I'll be happy with one, why not two? Go get Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, Justin Jefferson, or AJ Brown and AJ Brown. Go get two of them because you always have to plan for the unexpected. That's wisdom. You have to plan for what you don't think will happen because it might. Who knows going into any game on any season what player might go down with an injury? What player might be unavailable for whatever the reason? You've got to prepare for that. So if you only have one true number one wide receiver at the helm, and what happens if they're not available for you? So Nana says, OBJ was horrible. I love that. He was horrible. And I figured as much before he was signed. Yeah. But, they'll have you believe they did it for Lamar, but it was Monken who talked him up and wanted him. Maybe Lamar mentioned it. Maybe he did. Maybe. And we'll never know unless we find a way to get Lamar on the show or we have an opportunity to interview him and ask him his thoughts on it. And who knows if he'll share that. He's very private, but I agree. The bottom line here, no, OBJ just wasn't it. And I feel like bringing in a Michael Gallup is doing the same thing that we did last season, but expecting different results. And we all know that that's the definition of insanity. So let's not play that game, right? Brandon says they are trying to use him like they did Nelson. He only signed a 1-year deal. If he performs right, they could get him on a cheap deal. Maybe. I wouldn't be opposed to that. But my focus right now is filling the holes that we have. And for me, priority, offensive line. What are we doing with guard? Both right and left. What are we doing at tackle? Is Ronnie Stanley going to be ready to go? If he's not, is Josh Jones your insurance policy? Because your plan is to slide Pat McCary into the starting position over on the right side. So, like, what is the plan? So, my order of priority for me, offensive line. Name the starters at each position, name the backups at each position. And of course, this is early. There's still time for, the offseason to progress, preseason, training camp, mini camp, rookie camp, all the camps, all of that. Yes, but at least have a plan. And right now, I don't know what the plan is, but that's not to say there's not a plan. It's just I don't know what the plan is. So on the hamster wheel we go. Whew. We have to, as an organization, as a fan base that supports this organization, that pays our hard-earned money to go to these games, to buy the merchandise, however we support the Ravens, we as a fan base, right, should not be feeling like our team has us on this proverbial roller coaster ride. Every offseason, it's like, make sure your seatbelts are fastened, make sure you are ready because it's going to be a bit of a bumpy ride. I don't want that. I want to be able to go into an offseason and they say, we are going to address this, this, and this. And then within a week, they have done it. They have made moves. That's what I want to see. Hendo from the Road Pod said it was horrible. It was horrible. Tanja, good evening. Thank you for coming. Thank you. I hope you're doing well. Lamar wanted OBJ plus more. DeWeezy, yeah, I know he wanted more. I didn't know that Lamar wanted OBJ. I know that there were talks of other players that Lamar really wanted, but yeah, he wanted D-Hop. That's what I remember. And I was all for it. I was like, listen to Lamar, pay attention. He's speaking. He's telling you this is the recipe, this is the formula, this is the combination that we need to use in order to be successful. And they kind of went on in their own direction, and we see how it fared for us. Good evening, Jose. This is the other half of Lunch Break Hot Take. Make sure you go over there and subscribe and give them a like. Make sure you share their content as well as the Rogue Pod and everyone else who's in the chat. If there are any other YouTubers who I missed, charge it to my head and not my heart. I'm sure I'll get there eventually, but make sure you support all the Ravens YouTubers because it is work to do this. It is absolute work to do it, but it's fun and it's a pleasure. And you know why it's fun? It's fun because you're here. It's fun because you interact with us. It's fun because you provide insight and perspectives that maybe I don't consider. Maybe it's food for fodder. Sometimes we disagree, and that's okay. Reasonable minds can differ just as long as we are respectful. Living Big with Big Reg is in here. He has a Ravens channel. I think it's Ravens channel. I think he's a Ravens fan. He's possibly a Ravens fan, depending on what day of the week it is. But just go over to Reg's channel because he's going to give you a great perspective, something for you to consider. So please make sure you head over to Living Big with Big Reg's channel. Lamar and I have some demands. Okay, now I see it. What are your demands? What are the demands that you and Lamar have discussed? Ed says Lamar also wanted Pickens and we chose a job. That still hurts. Ed, that's a sore spot. That one, I'm still really tender, okay? I'm still very tender by the fact that we chose Ojabo and we could have had Pickens, and Lamar wanted Pickens. But I guess at that point, maybe the Ravens were not all in on Lamar. Who knows? I don't know. But nevertheless, we didn't get Pickens. I'm still upset about it. I try not to be bitter whenever I see Pickens out there making a monster play. And I'm like, he's doing it with baby hands. He's doing it with a quarterback that's nowhere near Lamar Jackson. What could George Pickens have done with Lamar Jackson? Nana says, right, these PSL, yes, are very expensive. These tickets are expensive. If you are, season holder, and they have the nerve to raise the prices. Don't raise the prices unless you're going to raise the quality of player. If you raise the quality of player, if you go out there and you get a Justin Jefferson and a Brandon Ayuk, or a Justin Jefferson and a Stephon Diggs, you go out there and you get a Justin Jefferson and a D-Hop. I know D-Hop is not available right now, but you go out there and you get those two types of players and you bring them in, you want to raise the price? I'm okay with that because you've given me a reason to buy in. D Weezy said that Reg is only a what's his name? Kyle Blue Kelly. Isn't that his name? KBK? I don't even remember the guy's name. We drafted him last year. He stayed around for like a week. And then the next thing you know, he was on his way out to the West Coast. And that was the end of that. So I haven't heard of KBK, Kyle Blue Kelly. I haven't heard of him, what he's doing. I'm not really sure what he's up to. So we'll see. Hendo from the Rogue Pod says, and they seem like they're all in now. I reserve comment until the end of free agency. We'll put a pin in that and we will discuss that after I see what moves are made from now until the end of free agency and throughout the draft and how this roster will be constructed. So I reserve my comment on that. Living Big with Big Rich says, Caillou Blue Kelly. See, I didn't even remember the man's name. I called him Kyle. I was like, I know that's not right. Caillou Blue Kelly is currently in Washington. He's in Washington doing what? He's in Washington doing what? I move on. And so in other news this week, the Ravens have agreed to terms with cornerback Arthur Maulet. I thought this was good. This was a depth piece for sure. Welcome back, I guess. But again, we still have major gaping holes to fill that cannot be overlooked. But I just wanted to talk about it for a couple of seconds. I just don't want cornerback to be where we spend our first round pick at pick 30 or our second round, because we have too many other important pieces that need to be filled and addressed, i.e. the O-line. I feel like a broken record, i.e. the O-line. I think wide receiver is another position that needs shoring up. Cornerback, certainly. I agree. We need some depth there. But our first pick, our second, and possibly not even our third need to be cornerback. Not saying the Ravens are going to listen. They might, go their own way. But that's kind of what I'm that's kind of what I'm thinking. Okay, Big Reg says that Caillou, see, I was about to call him Kyle again. Caillou is the starting slot corner in Washington. Who knew? That was news to me. So that's pretty much everything that I think the Ravens have done this week. Wanted to just come on and recap and get your thoughts on how you think they have done this week. Before I go, I'll ask you, for those watching live and for those who are watching it on replay, let me know, what grade, A, B, C, D, or F, do you give the Baltimore Ravens for this week, week 2 in NFL free agency? For me, I will give them a C minus. I'm going to give them a C minus. I don't think that anything that we did this week caused me to believe that this team has a true strategy, has a true plan, and I'm hopeful that I'm wrong. I really am. And maybe the strategy, maybe the plan is we're going to go heavy into this draft and really address the O-line, which brings on another amount of concerns of its own, because I feel like we'll be relying too heavily on rookies who we don't know, even if they were successful, excellent rookies, players in college, we don't know if that's going to necessarily translate to NFL. It worked out that way for Tyler Linderbaum. It did. And that's wonderful. It worked out that way for Kyle Hamilton. It did. And that's great. But we can't always guarantee that. And so for us to put so much stock in a rookie in terms of multiple positions at O-line, that does concern me. That does concern me. So Songstress for Real is giving the Ravens a C for this week. Ooh, B Cam. I can't be mad at the D, though. I can't be mad at the D because I gave him a C minus, so you're just literally a step behind where I was. But C minus. I'm with you, Ed. That's my grade for this week. A C, C minus for sure. Nana gives him a D. I mean, I believe in holding people accountable. I'm going to hold myself accountable. I'm going to hold the Ravens accountable. And this is the time where we need to see some moves being made to like ensure that this team is being set up to make it to the Super Bowl and win it all this year. So I can't even be mad at a D. Dewan, same thing. He said a D. Yeah. So Brandon says, "I'm sorry, sister. That's what they going. Yeah, that's what they're going to do. If they're picking up offensive line and free agent and not picking up corners or outside linebackers, that's another position. Outside linebacker. What are we going to like have someone to complement Odafe Owe? What are we doing? Because we cannot guarantee that Ojabo is going to be healthy. He's going to be ready. I mean, he's been in the league now 2 years, right? But how many games has he played? So, I mean, in all fairness, he's in my book, he's practically a rookie, not by virtue of when he's coming into the league, but just by virtue of him not really having that experience. He doesn't have it yet. So I don't know. So yes, I agree that outside linebacker, that's a position that we need to consider. What are we doing there? Attitude Pop, thanks for joining. Why do Ravens lie so much? They kept saying they were going to do right by Lamar and got to fix the O line. We want to get a physical O line. I mean, the only thing I can think of, Attitude Pop, and you're right, we should absolutely not be relying on rookies. I like to see a healthy balance at every position, balance between young and old. Oh gosh, I don't like to call these players old. That's not nice. Young and seasoned. I would like to see every position well rounded. You don't just have 100% veterans. You don't just have 100% rookies. You have a delicate, intricate balance between both. That's what I think is the formula. That's what I think is the key, where your veterans are teaching, coaching, mentoring, showing, and the rookies are soaking it in. They're able to get that playing time, to get that experience on a rotational basis, but not just front row center like we're relying on the rookies to carry the entire load. So that is an absolute concern for me. Absolute concern. Rodney, how do you complement Owe? Here's how. You bring in another edge player. You bring in another outside linebacker who is really going to add the certain je ne sais quoi that we were hoping Ojabo did, but we just didn't. We just didn't. I mean, we brought in Ojabo and we see where that landed us. How do you get Owe to stay healthy and be that guy? The same way you get every other player to stay healthy and be that guy. Because health as a Baltimore Raven is always a question. Health as a Baltimore Raven is always at issue. There's always a risk when you're talking the Ravens and health that go hand in hand, and it's literally flip a coin up, heads or tails. We don't know. That's just how it is. So it's not just Owe, it's literally everyone. It's everyone. This is mean. You don't give him a severance package, D Weezy. But Hendo says Roquan has no problem. You're right. You that's great of you. You named one player out of how many? Last I checked, it was a 53-man roster. So yes, and that's not to say that there are not other players who have been healthy. Absolutely, there are. But we cannot pretend that the Ravens have not had their fair share of players who were injured time and time and time again. Even players who have been healthy for 1, 2, 3 seasons, it might be that year that they may not be healthy. It just happens. The Ravens are a very physical team. They are a very, like they're supposed to be this very hard-nosed team. And along with that comes the possibility, the likelihood, the propensity of injuries. Sad to say, but it's true. Sad to say, but it is true. Nana says she wants to see if McDonald brings Ojabo in since he picked him in the draft. Would you be let me ask you this, chat, and for those watching on replay, feel free to leave it in the chat. Would you be upset, or how would you feel if Ojabo left? If Ojabo left, whether he goes to Mike McDonald, well, that's probably the most likely landing spot, but would you be upset about it? Hendo from the Rogue Pod says trade Ojabo to Seattle right now and replace him with who? Replace him with who? D Weezy, he would applaud it. He would applaud it. And D Weezy is a Panthers fan, but he's very knowledgeable about the Baltimore Ravens and he watches the Ravens and he would applaud it. So I'm going to take a couple more questions and I'm going to get out of here. And Brandon says they are focusing on this year and next year. Okay. Marlon Humphrey got 2 years on his contract. Okay. So we're going to be looking for another corner. I think we should be. We should be looking for another corner. Absolutely. Because I don't want to be the one to say it, but I know we're all thinking it. I'm not going to say we're all thinking it, but I'm sure some of us in the fan base are thinking it. Is Marlon what Marlon used to be? And I'll just leave that right there for you to ponder. So Nana says no, not mad at all. She wouldn't be mad at all. He doesn't play. What do we need to replace? We need to replace the position that he was supposed to occupy. That's what we would need to replace. Not necessarily Ojabo as the player. We would replace Ojabo's position. What we were expecting or hoping to get from Ojabo, we need to fill that with a replacement, a suitable replacement. So that's what I'd be looking for. Brandon Stevens does not have a 5th-year option. We need to think about Brandon Stevens as well. That's another one. So if he doesn't have a 5th-year option, then what? Then what? After this year, what's next? Coach Evans from Sip to Tally, welcome. Thank you for joining. If you are not subscribed, you already know what I'm going to say. Take 2.5, head on over to Sip to Tally. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe, watch his video, watch his content. And I'm glad to have him back because he is certainly one of the foundational pieces in content creation for the Baltimore Ravens. So make sure you head over there if you are not subscribed already. We replace that every year. Yeah, we do, right? But at what point are we going to replace it with a position, with a player who doesn't need replacing the next year? Does that make sense? What point are we going to say, we need to replace this position, not just for 1 year? We need to replace this position with a player who's going to give us longevity, with a player who's going to give us production for years to come. That's what I'm thinking. 2-hour stream. You know what? That is a lovely idea. Oh, I'm so happy you thought of that. I tell you what, I will do a 2-hour stream just as soon as you give us that 24-hour stream on the Rogue Pod that you have promised. That'd be great. So I am going to end it there. I think I've covered everything. Oh, I think I missed Zeitler. So we lost Zeitler to the Lions. He's there for a 1-year deal. And that's pretty much everything that's happened with the Ravens, I think, this week 2. It's still not over. We still have tomorrow. They can make moves on Saturday. They can make moves on Sunday. We still have a few more days in this week to see what the Ravens do. I'm going to continue to be hopeful. I'm going to continue to be optimistic that we are not going to place the burden and the entire load on rookies in the draft for purposes of our offensive line. I'm really hoping for that. So I'd love to see what we do in free agency if we do anything to address that position. But otherwise, Ravens, if you are watching this, we appreciate it. Please do not put the stock that you are thinking to put in Michael Gallup or Josh, what's that guy's name again? Reynolds. Just know we've given you some suggestions that the people in the comment have laid out for you the rubric. We've given you the roadmap to success. Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, Stephon Diggs, go choose one of them. Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, go look over there. Try and make something happen with that. And if you do, we'll be thankful. That's it for tonight. I'm going to leave it right there. Thank you very much for coming out. If the Baltimore Ravens do something splashy, flashy, great, you'll see me again soon. But until then, thank you again. I want you all to take care, stay safe, go Ravens. God bless.